this is the front page of the digital prototype that I've built. And many of the elements that you see here will persist as layout elements across all of the pages of the site. And I did that to try to create sort of a common look and feel across the site elements, so that people could move through the site and have a sense of where to navigate if they needed help. So this top banner here with the name of the site, this is always clickable, so people can come back here to the front page. This left menu that has referral guides, these are more detailed guides that people can view on the screen or download to give them a broader overview of providing assistance and connecting people with social service resources on larger topics, food and housing, etc. And then this footer that has 3 buttons that will persist across all the site pages, helping the user to be able to navigate in case they need to get immediate help, unless they need to establish some sort of contact to get some more specific help in using the site. So this front page is the starting point that people will see when they log on to the site. And it assumes that the user has already registered. And again, I will have to sort of Wizard of Oz this. I think I will pre-register my users. But in terms of site functionality, the user will submit their username and password. If they do that correctly, they'll log in, and we'll look at that in a moment. If somebody is new to the site and has not registered, they can click here to register here. And it asks for some basic information. It's intended at the start for this to be a site for clergy and a site built by other clergy. One of the things I heard from the people I spoke to in the clergy community, colleagues that I have in ministry, was that they were especially interested in information that they could put some reliance on, that they knew other people had used. And so as a starting point, that's led me to make this specifically for clergy, to also curate both registration and the information in the database. So new users have to be approved, new listings have to be approved. But the information request, it's not that onerous. Just somebody's name, email, the church or agency that they're connected to, and then they choose a username or password. If they're a new registrant, and they fill that out, and they click here to submit, they get a feedback form that displays telling them that they will get a confirmation email within a few hours that will give them access. And again, this is to allow the site to be one where people's status and sort of access to the site is verifiable as a way of building user trust. But I'll go back to the front page here. So if we imagine that the user has logged in, put their username and password in, and logged in, the first page that they reach to search for resources is zip code. And here I've pre-populated this with a zip code here in Pittsburgh. The user types in a 5-digit zip code, clicks submit, and then that gives them feedback in terms of reminding them of the zip code that they chose. Zip code is important because different programs only serve specific geographic areas. So depending on the person you might be trying to help, they might only be eligible for certain food pantries in the city, or and that's generally organized by zip code because that's it's linked it's linked to the way that governmental assistance programs and grant agencies fund these different agencies. So in this situation, the person chose this zip code 15203. The person is then, the user of the site is then given a menu that shows some broad service areas. When you click on these, and I'll click here on food, that then opens up a larger menu of more specific programs. In this case, I will then choose food pantries. And then when the person chooses food pantries, they then get a feedback form that says they chose this zip code, 15203, and what they chose in terms of a specific topic. And then on the same page, they'll get the results. And the scroll bar here is in case there are more items in the database that match this category and this zip code. The results of the search give them the name of the organization, the location geographically of where they would send the person who needed help, the hours of operation. A lot of these programs are volunteer run, so they are not open 9 to 5. A specific contact number within the organization, and a specific person's email address that they can also be in contact with. For some organizations, there'll be more contact information. Different social service agencies are more and less visible in terms of how much they're willing to make their staff sort of specifically available. So, but these general categories, location, hours, as specific a body of contact information as I can provide, information on eligibility, so that if somebody comes asking for help, you're not sending them to some place without the documentation that they will need. For this food pantry, you have to prove that you are a resident of Pittsburgh South Side. So your address has to fit within that geographic area. In this case, in the database, this residents of Pittsburgh South Side will map in the database to 2 or 3 different zip codes. But in terms of the search result, this more general eligibility information will probably be displayed, and that the organization requires proof of address from people who want assistance, and then a way of connecting to the organization's website. There will probably also be a notes section here if there's any other additional information that would be useful in the referral process. In this case, this was the information that was available for this organization. But my hope is as this site has more contributors among clergy, there'll be more information, more detail that could be added in that notes section. If somebody wanted to go back and search for a different type of assistance, maybe the person they're working with also is having problems paying for utilities, or has somebody in the family who is ill, they can go back to search again and they can repeat the process. At this stage, I think that's going to be the loop, simply because it's hard for me to predict whether or not they're going to want to search for a different service or a different zip code. And so I've tried to make this loop as simple as possible. When somebody comes to the site and they, rather than are looking for information, want to submit information, they'll see this button which will persist in the top header, and clicking on that allows them to submit a new listing to the database. These will be somewhat open-ended, so if people will be able to enter null values here, leave this blank if necessary, but ideally they'll be able to offer the program name, an address, phone number, the same sort of information we saw displayed, as well as some description. This will be a basis for checking this information, confirming it with the organization once it's submitted, because the goal of this site is to create a listing source, a referral source that is trustworthy. I've chosen to make it a curated site so that when somebody submits information, they get a feedback screen that says we will confirm the information that you have submitted. and thanks them, and if they want to submit anything else, they can go back to the listing form or they can email me directly. But at this point, as I'm trying to build traction for this site, I'm choosing not to have people be able to add things directly into the database without review. In this, related to the search that we just did, if people have an interest in learning more about sort of the overall picture of the kind of questions you could ask if somebody comes asking for aid in a particular area, they can click on these referral guides. And I've built out the one for food support, started that so far. People will have the opportunity to look at this on screen or to download it in a PDF that I will link to. And this is intended for people who are perhaps just getting started in the work of ministry and are just starting to think through, what do you do when somebody walks in the door? And so this will be probably 4 or 5 screens. People will be able to scroll down and will help site users think through what type of need are they being presented with? Are there government programs or other longer-term programs that they might be able to connect people with? And there'll be links to those websites, as well as some guidance in helping people fill out some of those applications. This will be available to people whether or not they're registered. And so on the welcome page, that's shown here. People can access those guides without a login. And my hope is that by giving people that funnel of some information and some resources, that may help them be more interested in investing in registering and participating in building the site. A few more things here in terms of this prototype. The about this site simply lets people know what I'm doing this for, who I am, and gives a brief assurance of privacy of information and lets them have a way of connecting with me if they have any questions. The help button connects them to a set of problem scenarios that are intended to support users who are really new to using online tools. Where they are, if they're having a problem, they can either directly click to log in again, they can directly click to contact me. If they're not getting the results that they want, there's some search hints. And if people click on this, this will take them to the search page. This will take them to a contact form, which I'll look at in a minute. This will take them to the login screen. Again, trying to create as many sort of repetitive paths to recovering from confusion or error. Finally, this Contact Us button takes the user to a form where they can submit information, questions, suggestions, concerns. Again, it's just a way that's a little more streamlined than my email address to allow them to contact me. When they submit that, they get a feedback screen saying thank you, a promise that will respond within 24 hours, and an invitation if they have more to say, more to submit, that they are welcome to use the contact form again or to email. The goal with all of that, particularly in the early days of this site, is to give people as many paths to feel as though they can contribute, they can ask questions, and to reassure them that if they're having a problem working with the site, that there's a way to solve that, and that there's support to help them solve that. So that's the walkthrough of this prototype.